In this video, we're going to be talking about 3 hard to understand gameplay features in Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition. And I'll be honest, Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition was the first ever Xenoblade game that I played. I recently just beat it and really loved it, honestly. I really enjoyed my time and think there's so many things in this game that really gets it right when it comes to gameplay for a JRPG. But there are a few things that I was left just scratching my head even until the end of the game. Now, the features I'll discuss in this video are in no way a knock to the gameplay or features themselves. Actually, many of these are just kind of complex to comprehend and understand. They're achievable to really understand and get the hang of, but I'll be honest, it was something that, it was a bit confusing, and just some things I just didn't really understand the point of either, that we'll discuss. And so I just wanted to highlight 3 of these gameplay features that were really the most confusing to understand and still had trouble navigating them even through the end of the game. So let's get started. Number 1, gem crafting. So gems are basically an ability upgrades that you attach to your clothing in the game, and they're actually really important. They really do give you many different upgrades, including increasing strength, increasing agility, reducing different buffs, 25% chance that an attack will lower enemy strength by 20%, just a variety of different abilities that you attach to your clothing and really upgrade your overall combat. And in the game, you receive crystals from defeating enemies that you get from loot, and these crystals can be really crafted into gems that turn into these upgraded abilities. And of course, there is a crafting machine, but there's only one of them. One craft machine in the entire game, and that's on Colony 9 where you start, which was pretty fun in the beginning. I mean, given that it was kind of confusing in the beginning, but there's only one, and as you progress through the entire game, there is no more craft machines, and you continue getting these crystals. And I was a little confused by this. I was surprised there weren't any more craft machines as you went on through the story, but instead you have to fast travel back to the beginning of the game to use this machine. I thought that was a little odd, but even beside that, just actually crafting was a little complex. I'll be honest with you. It was interesting, and I'll be honest, thankfully with this game, it does give you a recommendation setting. So if you are having a hard time, there is such thing as, turning on the recommendation to help you pair which crystals go with which so that you can actually maximize the most. That was helpful, but on its own, I really didn't understand which one should be paired with which, and thankfully, for the most part, it does a good job of saying, what it's going to upgrade and what percentage on the side there. But overall, it was something that I never really went back to. As I continued on with the game, you get gems actually from completing quests, even getting gems mainly from the item collectopedia, that when you collect items in the game, you can actually bookmark them in a book, and when you fill up a row, you actually get gems when you are done. And that was enough for me. I got those gems and I used those. I never went back to the actual craft machine. So the first kind of confusing thing in the game was gem crafting. Number 2, Affinity Charts. Now, the Affinity Chart is, from my understanding, basically it shows the relationship that you have with other characters and the level of relationship you have with them. Before I even get to the affinity chart for the party, I'm confused on why there's even an affinity chart for other characters in the game. I mean, you interact with them, but you don't fight alongside of them, so there's not really that aspect. The most that you really do is just trade items with them, but even then, I don't understand the purpose of the affinities for, the kind of just normal NPC characters, and what benefit, just seeing the affinity chart has. Now, in terms of the actual affinity chart for your party, that's important for a number of reasons. One, heart to hearts, which that is a whole nother thing, because 9 times out of 10 I didn't even have a heart to heart unlocked, because either it just wasn't unlocked in general, or the affinity that I needed for that heart to heart wasn't at the appropriate level. And okay, so upgrade your affinity. Well, even that was a bit confusing. I learned later on, even with like gem crafting, you're able to upgrade your relationship, your affinity with the characters, because you have a partner when crafting gems. And so, it's very direct. You're going to upgrade that affinity by that way. But it was also told that you can give gifts to characters, and that is a way to upgrade their affinity. But even giving gifts was kind of odd because it's a hit or miss. You either give a good gift or you give a bad gift. And at one point I gave like 100 good gifts, and I didn't see any change, to be honest with you. And there was no really indication of, the progress to show you how close you are, what you need to do. It was kind of just ambiguous, and it left me just confused. And to go back to the heart-to-hearts, the heart-to-hearts were actually conversations that two characters would have, an in-depth heart-to-heart conversation that really does give a little bit more in-depth to the character and to the conversation that's going on at that point of the story. And were kind of neat, but again, 9 times out of 10, I wasn't even able to access it because I didn't have it unlocked, or I just didn't have the right affinity. So just the affinity chart overall and just affinities, I could care less about them. Again, it's one of those I could spend a little bit more time to understand, but overall, it just left me misguided. Lastly, number 3, skill trees. Now, this is kind of unfortunate too, and to be honest, I actually use skill trees more than I did the gem crafting and more than I looked at the affinity chart, because the skill trees, well, from JRPGs, just RPGs in general, that skill trees are fairly important, right? You get to upgrade and unlock different abilities. So for example, like with Shulk, his skill branches include humanity, integrity, and intuition. And of course, within these different skill branches, you're able to either, make sure your agility is up, or have HP restored when reviving a party member, or successfully complete quests and you get more XP. Like just a different abilities for the different skill branches that you do. But the most confusing thing to me was the skill links and actually unlocking them. They're based on affinity coins, so there's kind of a currency attached to it. But I was always left with, am I choosing the right one? Why are some unlocked and why are some not? This might just be the most confusing thing, yet the most important feature in this game. And as you see here, I have, different skill links and branches unlocked, and I've kind of just assumed that I knew what I was doing, and if I can unlock something and attach it and it successfully, it was one of those things where I'm like, okay, at least I did something. But in terms of actually knowing the intricate details of this complex skill branch system, it was kind of beyond me, honestly. Now again, these are just 3 confusing gameplay features that I had. You might have understood these a lot more than I have, but I just wanted to highlight after I beat the game, you kind of get a sense of what was easy to comprehend, what you liked and enjoyed the most, and just some things that kind of fell to the wayside. And these were 3 gameplay features that, well, kind of fell to the wayside for me, and thankfully they weren't too important to where, despite my confusion and despite me not really knowing how to navigate them, I was still able to enjoy the game, progress through the game at a great pace, and honestly, it didn't really hurt my opinion of the game overall. It was just something that was a little confusing and didn't really understand. Let me know in the comments if there were any confusing gameplay features for you in Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition. Let me know, and even if you're familiar with gem crafting, affinity charts, or even skill trees, let me know what I'm missing. I'm missing a puzzle to help me really understand these features. Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching this video. Make sure to like and subscribe. We'll see you next time.